Occult Confessions is brought to you commercial-free through the generous support of our patrons. Visit occultconfessions.com and click on Donate to help keep the history of the occult on the digital airwaves. Through the close and up the stair, Butt and Ben with Burke and Hare. Burke's the butcher, Hare's the thief, and Knox the boy who buys the beef. My name is Dr. Robert C. Thompson. That's all I got for you as a way of introduction today, because we are getting into the story of the Anatomy Murders, that is, Murder for Resurrection, conducted by William Burke and Hare, also known as Williams, Burke and Hare. I'm here with Olivia Litterall. What's up, man?
I'm alive. I exist.
You have not been dismembered by a dissectionist in 19th century Scotland.
Not yet. There's still time.
I look forward to that photo shoot.
I'm not sure if that would get me praised or canceled, honestly.
It could go either way, but I mean, the special effects alone would be worth the price of admission.
Yeah, I just do it on myself.
We've also got Luke Kinnaman here doing his thing, producing.
And you can call me Nubs because I've been dismembered. Sorry, that's pretty terrible.
Ouch, man. Ouch.
It's a no effects song.
Right.
It's okay.
Is it a song?
Yeah, it's a no
Okay,
effects
thank
team.
God.
It's called Nubs. It's great.
I thought that just came from your brain.
No,
We'll give you, I mean, it did in some way.
Yeah.
You at least got the reference.
Mm.
Let's go ahead and pledge it out and talk about these guys. We, the members of the secret order of alchemical actors, do solemnly commit ourselves to a full and honest telling of the history of the occult as far as we know it.
Who knew it was just ingrained into my soul?
It's like riding a bicycle, which you can't do.
Yep. That's correct.
We are off to the races today.
But not on a bike.
No, we're scooting. So let's talk about these guys. We're going to quit laughing because we're going to kill a lot of people today.
Yeah, that's not funny.
16. Williams Burke and Hare, I'm not going to call them that, William Burke and William Hare, murdered 16 people in the space of about 1 year in the city of Edinburgh, Scotland. Burke was 36 years old and Hare 21.
Oh.
Yeah, think of that.
Okay, that's a power.
Young man.
Mm-hmm.
Many of their victims were plied with alcohol until they passed out, and then Hare lay on the body as Burke closed the mouth and nostrils in a fairly novel method of killing that came to be called burking. Blame Burke for this one.
Stop. That's like planking, but so wrong.
Yeah, because you literally are planking on top of
What
the
the
guy or
fuck?
gal. Yes.
Wait, so they were just like, were they trying to crush? What was the,
It was
just holding them down?
We'll get into it a little bit, but
Sorry,
they
okay.
probably came up with this accidentally while they were trying to hold the
Oh,
person
I
down,
see,
and discovered
okay.
that this was a way of killing somebody without leaving much of a trace, forensically speaking.
The image in my head is,
It's ridiculous.
It's
Sure,
ridiculous.
it's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
okay.
It's a terrible, ridiculous way to die.
okay.
They then transported the corpses in a tea chest, sometimes in broad daylight, to Dr. Robert Knox. Knox was one of a handful of locally famous anatomists or surgery professors who charged medical students to attend lectures at his laboratory where they watched him dissect the bodies he acquired through resurrection men. By resurrection men, we mean, of course, Burke and Hare. Knox, like many of his fellow anatomists, did not ask questions when a man arrived to sell him a corpse, right? Like, would you?
No,
I
Luke,
want to
come
know
on,
if it's
you're gonna ask
organic,
questions?
maybe.
Oh, all
Not
right,
in that
yeah.
climate.
Was it locally sourced? Well, while there were legal means for acquiring bodies, it was most likely that they had been dug up from a recent burial in a cemetery in the dark of night. So the assumption would not be that they were murdered, that they were stolen.
question.
Yeah.
Is this like, because I know, at least like here back in the day, it was like legally kind of like sketchy because bodies weren't possessions, right? Isn't that how it, you know what I mean? Like they didn't consider like a dead body someone's possession, so for someone to go steal it was kind of like,
It was a legally gray area, is that what you're saying?
yes.
I think it's true that it was a legal gray area because it became a subject of like local, not actual police, but local, essentially militias formed around this
I see.
issue. Yeah. But I can't speak specifically to whether or not you could go to jail for it. It feels like people, well, anyway,
Sure.
we'll get there. What am I saying? This practice of digging people out of the cemetery became so common in the 1820s that, well, I was just talking about these. The armed protection societies emerged in Edinburgh to guard cemeteries from thieves. These are just regular guys, though. Like, it's not police. It's just like you and your buddies can get together and
Night watch.
do the night watch. Yeah, the neighborhood watch. Of course, it wasn't legal to shoot a man for corpse theft, but that did nothing to prevent shots from being fired over gravestones.
Okay. Sure.
Right. These corpse thieves were called resurrectionists for the way they revived the dead.
Okay. That was the same thing in Virginia. That's what they.
Yeah.
I went on my batch trip. I took some weird tours.
Resurrection tours.
Yeah. You didn't bring back any souvenirs, though.
From the. Well, no. I brought back some bones, but not human bones.
No legal souvenirs is what she's trying. Nothing she's willing to confess to on this show.
They were legally bought from a store.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Were they locally sourced? So
I think so.
So the corpse thieves were called resurrectionists. They revived the dead from their tombs for profit. Before the 19th century, it was actually doctors and their students who did the grave robbing. The advent of these voluntary guards then pushed the doctors out of the cemeteries because, doctors were not equipped to be shot at. So that medical professionals had to resort to professional body snatchers for their subjects. So when it wasn't dangerous and you could just walk into a cemetery and grab a corpse, doctors were willing to do the digging, but they were not willing to be shot at.
Yeah, I mean, heard. I get it.
Drew the line there.
Yeah.
So then it became more of a black market thing. Perhaps the most prolific and notorious of these resurrectionists before Burke and Hare was Andrew Merrilees. I love this guy. Merry Andrew. I mean, love this guy in a way because I never have to meet him. So, Merry Andrew, his merriness was not just a function of his name, right? Andrew Merrilees. Like many of the working poor of the early 19th century in Scotland, Merrilees could put down as many as 16 cups of whiskey in a day.
Okay, what is a cup?
I'm going to guess like a
12 ounce?
Like you make a cup of flour, yeah, like you're...
Okay.
Or like a...
Not a pint glass of whiskey.
I mean, that's still a large amount.
Are you not impressed?
No, I am. I'm just trying to really fully give him the credit,
Yeah, he's a merry dude. He's
At that
pretty
point,
merry.
why don't
Apparently he was
they
happy drunk.
quantify it using bottles? Wouldn't that be easier to calculate?
Yeah, that's true. He's up to a couple bottles there, isn't he? Maybe more. Anyway.
I guess cups sounds more...
Yeah, that's just how they did it. Just how they did it then.
I guess, yeah.
2 bottles, 16 cups, yeah, which sounds more impressive. When he drank, he bragged about the bodies he stole from the cemeteries of Edinburgh.
Oh, okay.
So
we all know him. We know him.
We've met that guy. He had apparently grown up in a home overlooking a graveyard. Like a character out of Charles Dickens, his face, he was tall and thin. He wore ill-fitting clothes with a body that jerked when he walked, causing his face to twitch. Right, he's a caricature of a grave robber, right? Giant, ungainly figure with these mismatched clothes. He operated as part of a gang, including Praying Howard, who went around praying with the families to acquire information about where to steal corpses. Let's pray for your deceased loved one. Where again is that grave? Where you did say where you buried, because it's good to picture the grave as we pray.
I'm asking for a friend.
So if that wasn't bad enough, another member of the gang was Praying Andrew, who just dressed like a priest.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to go, perform a blessing on your loved one's grave, please. Where might I find that?
That one's not as fun. I like the other one. It's so much more fun.
It's a bit more daring, though, right? Moldewarp.
Oh. Okay.
There's another member of the gang. He did most of the digging, and Spoon got the bodies up out of their coffins. They called him Spoon, I assume, because he...
Oh, I thought Spoon should be digging.
I was thinking the
Spoon
same thing.
is cranking them up.
Okay, I guess I get it. Yeah,
like a spoon. Yeah, spooning them out of there. Then he would spoon the body. No, that's not true.
Oh.
It was illegal to remove a body from a grave, going to Olivia's question.
Okay.
I don't know, but the possession after the fact, right, I think maybe is where it's a gray area.
Yeah, I can't remember
removing
the
it.
exact. Yeah.
So they tended to work in secret. Andrews sold his gang's macabre wares in Surgeon Square. By and large, when resurrectionists were caught, doctors were not questioned.
You say in the square?
Surgeon Square. It was a
Oh.
specific area where all the
I
medical
thought it was
schools were.
like
Yeah. No,
the
this was like
main-
where all
the farmer's market.
I'm going to name all the different.
Sorry, that's what I pictured. When...
Yes, locally sourced corpses,
Oh.
like we're talking about.
Oh, so Surgeon Square. That's
Yeah.
like a
It's
location.
where the medical guys were
I see,
sort
I
of
see.
like, yeah.
That's
There's a
kinda
bunch
cool.
of them.
That's a cool name.
So anyway, we weren't going to bother the doctors when we caught one of these guys because,
Mm.
you know, they're fancy dudes. They're doctors. That's why I got my PhD. I don't want people bothering me about the things that you guys find.
Yeah, you don't want to rob graves yourself.
Right, when you guys drop stuff on my doorstep, I don't want questions about it later. The historian Lisa Rosner suggests that successful body snatchers could raise a corpse a month. So it takes a little time, planning, effort, right? We got to pray with these families and stuff. About a corpse a month. In France, when a person died and was unclaimed, they actually went to a dead room to wait for 24 hours. If they remained unclaimed, they were taken by a public official to the anatomy schools. This was to curb the resurrection trade in France. Scotland had no such system, and the subject was actually hotly debated in Parliament. Reformers sought to bring the French system to the United Kingdom on the logic that the poor lived off of public assistance, and so they owed the public a debt. Let's think about that for a second. So the poor, right, have public assistance, you know, food stamps, the equivalent of food stamps and things. So the argument is, okay, well, the public has paid for them to live, so we should get their body when they die.
Is that socialism?
No. So by this
What
logic,
is that?
Morticianism.
the politician, yeah. So the politician Henry Hunt, loved this guy. He said the royal family should be first in line for dissection when they died, if this is how we're going to decide who gets to be dissected.
Yeah.
Because the public completely supports them.
Oh, I like that.
people
Yeah.
Love that shit.
Right? Who wouldn't go to that what am I looking for? Autopsy. His fellow radical politician, William Cobbett, took things a step further, asking, who is science for? Not for the poor people. Then if it be necessary for the purposes of science, let them have the bodies of the rich for whose benefit science is cultivated. I love this thought, right? That ultimately scientific discovery, especially like, you know, think about new drugs and stuff and how expensive they are. They're not really for the working poor.
Or like space. And people are like,
right, we're so excited.
Going up there.
Let them pay for it. They kind of are now, right? They have nothing to do with their money. They bought the giant yacht, might as well buy a rocket ship.
NASA's a wreck, right?
NASA's a wreck. Thank goodness we have Jeff Bezos.
Oh no.
Or that guy from Virgin Airlines took it a little too far. Couldn't just fly from country to country. Burke and Hare sold their first victim in November 1827. Let's get down to it, shall we? Enough of this politics.
Oh, yeah.
Their first victim, 1827, was the old pensioner Donald. We don't always have all the details about who these people were. Remember, most of their victims were the working poor. So these guys were the working poor. Like, this is all the working poor of Scotland. So, you know, details are a little hazy. Donald was not a victim in the same way as the subsequent 15 would be. So of the 16, Donald didn't have to die by burking.
Oh.
In fact, 2 guys don't die of burking, but we'll get there. He seems to have died of natural causes while he was a boarder in Hare's tenement. So Hare is running, William Hare is just running this apartment. He's got a room to let, and a guy just happens to kick it in the room.
Okay.
Donald was late in his rent and died inconveniently just before he was set to receive his quarterly pension payment from the army.
I was wondering why his name was whatever pension.
Oh, the old pensioner? Yeah, because he got a pension, yeah. So Hare was about to get this check, but the guy died before he could get the check. So he's like, well, I got to make my money back somehow.
Oh, shit.
This guy was in the room for a whole month.
Oh, no.
Hare made arrangements for Donald to be buried. So initially, Hare's like, fine, he's a corpse. I got to bury him. It's just the law. Like, it's how it is. Poor old Donald, the old pensioner. So he called up the guys, you know, he's like, I'm gonna get this guy buried. We're going to get the local parish, you know, get it all done the right way. But then Hare watched as the corpse stiffened in his apartment. He watched for a day, and he thought about it, and he said to himself, why don't I just sell him? So he called, right, Luke? You're sitting with the corpse the whole day. The thought's going to occur to you that you're either going to eat him or you're going to sell him.
Or you just talk to him and wait for him to respond.
See if he talks back. So he called on a friend of his by the name of William Burke for assistance delivering Donald to the doctors to sell. Because remember, we have this market available for corpses.
So at this point, they were not connected to said market.
No, this was their first.
He's literally just like light bulb moment.
This is the beginning.
Okay.
This is when the serial killer kills the cat, right?
And just calls his bro.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gonna call a friend because this is a body we gotta haul. It's gonna be a job. Now, remember, he'd already made arrangements to bury this guy. So a carpenter came in with a coffin. They put the body in the coffin. The carpenter nailed down the lid. Apparently, this was part of your responsibilities as a Scottish carpenter. And then he walked out. So the carpenter's gone, and now we have this body in a coffin. So what are we going to do? I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to grab out that crowbar, and we're going to pry open the top of that coffin, remove the corpse, fill the coffin with bark, which apparently somebody's been collecting somehow in downtown Edinburgh. And we're going to send it off to be interred. The bark, that is.
Hey, the carpenter still got paid.
Right,
for his
that's
work,
true.
So
He got his.
I can't be mad.
And, presumably the bark collector also got paid.
The bark collector.
The barkman.
Yes.
So there's another fateful moment here. So there's two fateful moments. First, when poor old Donald dies and, the wheels start turning in Hare's head and then Burke's head that this could be a business. And then here's the other fateful moment. So they go off to look for Dr. Alexander Monroe III. But Dr. Monroe never worked past 3 o'clock in the afternoon, preferring the brighter light of the morning in the afternoon for preparing his, dissections and then actually conducting them. Monroe, by the way, was a beneficiary of 2 generations of nepotism. Shouldn't surprise you because, he kicks off at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The first Dr. Alexander Monroe had secured his position as professor of anatomy at Edinburgh University when his father, John Monroe, arranged it through his position on the town council. Dr. Monroe I passed the position down to his son, who then passed it to Dr. Monroe Tertius. The third Monroe was certainly privileged, but not especially ambitious beyond maintaining his privilege, as happens in
That checks out.
the landed gentry. So, So Dr. Monroe's not home, and we've got this corpse. What are we going to do with it? Let me introduce to you the third leg on this table, right? Of this
Wait,
three-legged table.
They're just wheeling this corpse out at 3 p.m.?
Yes, just walking it around.
Okay.
Yeah. This
Sorry,
is Edinburgh.
I just realized. Okay.
Edinburgh is a tough town. So,
Put some sunglasses on him. It's a weekend at Bernie's scenario. No one needs to know.
oh yeah, maybe they've got him propped up. They've got sunglasses on him.
Why would they just keep him in the coffin?
He's got to go.
The coffin.
The coffin's full of bark now. We got to stick him in a tea chest or
I
something.
guess they did need to bury something. Okay.
So, let me introduce you to Dr. Robert Knox. Dr. Robert Knox worked later and longer. And Burke and Hare found his office amenable to receiving Donald, the old pensioner's body. Knox, by chance, also had little experience in forensics, and so was consistently not suspicious of the corpses that Burke and Hare kept dropping off ever afterward. That was convenient. Okay, so how does this come to be that we have this dissectionist, this anatomist who has very little forensic experience whatsoever? So Knox had been a hospital assistant during the Battle of Waterloo and was restationed in South Africa after the Napoleonic Wars. In South Africa, his interest in comparative anatomy flourished as he spent his time dissecting the African flora of the region. South Africa also helped him further develop his racism.
Okay, yeah, I was waiting for that a little bit.
Right, we've got him in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Knox believed that indigenous people were destined to be destroyed for their inferiority.
Oh,
Oh,
okay,
goodness.
here we go. Locking in.
In the I'm sort of doing this. It is true. It is all true of this man. And there are reasons to not hate him. But because things are not going to go well for him, I just want to lay out reasons to not feel so bad when his life takes a really bad turn. Because he's really, in a large part, not to blame for these events, but he's also not a wildly sympathetic figure. For these reasons. Okay, so this is true of his thoughts on indigenous people in the United Kingdom. He argued, to make this even worse, that the Celtic races had to be forced from the soil in order for the nation to thrive.
That's so specific.
Yeah, those are my people. But the Irish, right? We've always hated the Irish.
Yeah,
The Welsh, right?
Yeah.
While Knox was influential in the debunked field of race science, he was also widely criticized in his own time. So it's not like people were like, oh, yes, the Irish are inferior ape people. We must remove them. The people spoke up against him. So for what it's worth, though, he was apparently a very loving and devoted husband. He was also a father of 6. So let me just balance that out for you. Yeah. Busy guy. Which is also kind of important when we think about his relationship with Burke and Hare. Okay, so after hospital assistants were placed on half pay in 1820, Dr. Knox left for Paris, where he studied natural history and paleontology at the Jardin des Plantes under Georges Cuvier. This encouraged his pursuit of the laws connecting the whole of the animal kingdom. He believed that he could come up with these patterns that, make all of us in the animal kingdom somehow connected. And he began presenting papers on his research and became a Fellow of the Royal Society of Edinburgh. Then in 1824, he worked to establish the Museum of Comparative Anatomy. In 1826, he became the conservator of the Royal College of Surgeons. As an established lecturer, he taught roughly 300 students a year at a cost of about £800. In short, Knox was busy. He was administrating a museum, he was dissecting, he was writing articles, and he was parenting 6 children. But he was not a practicing surgeon, not a medical guy. Right? He's an anatomist. He's a scientist, basically. More interested in anatomy than medicine or forensics, Knox may have been derelict in not questioning Burke and Hare further about their deliveries, but he had where did this come from, boys? But he had no kind of expertise that would tip him off that his dissecting subjects had been murdered. So this is what I want to really emphasize about this guy before we get into this case. He is going to look at 16 bodies. Donald is the first one. 15 of these bodies will have been murdered. This guy has no skills whatsoever to look at the body and say, something's off here.
Oh, because they're not killing them in like a way where they'd be like, this dude has a hole in him.
Their heads aren't chopped off or anything. Yeah.
Okay. I made fun of the burking, but maybe they had something there.
Donald, I'd like to remind you, unlike Burke and Hare's other victims, had not been murdered. So Knox also, like his initial introduction to Burke and Hare is, it's an actual dead guy who died normally. Enjoy this little pun. There was stiff competition among anatomists.
Oh, man.
Which drove the market. There you go. We both got a groan in. Which drove the market for corpses in Surgeon Square. In addition to Monroe and Knox, there were, I'm going to name them all now, James Simey, Robert Liston, John and Alexander Lazars, who produced popular engravings of the human body. You can Google these. They're extant. John William Turner, and John and Thomas Aitken. All these guys, all of them are anatomists. There's a huge market for corpses. Burke and Hare were told to return after dark, where they met the doctor in person. So they're hauling this body all over Scotland. They had to haul him there.
Crazy.
Right? So they finally get to meet the doctor. They carried the body in a sack. They gave false names. Knox took a look at the body and offered them £7 10 shillings for their work, asking no questions and telling them he would be glad to see them again if they were to come by with any other body they should like to dispose of. Burke and Hare received an average of £10 per corpse, the equivalent of a month's salary for many of their neighbors.
Man.
Yeah, right?
I mean, how are you not going to just keep... I mean, the murder is bad.
Yeah.
Murder's pretty bad.
But if you're just digging up dead bodies...
You can see how it's easy to get greedy. Remember back, my resurrectionists, really doing the actual work of, befriending a family and finding out where the corpse is. It takes a month. So you're making that month's salary, but you're doing a month's labor.
Right.
If we could just crank this into gear, we could start making some money. Okay, what were we talking about? £10, pretty spiffy. Conditions among the working poor were also deeply precarious. Immigrants were not eligible for government assistance during times of scarcity until they lived in the country for 3 years, and there were constant immigration back and forth from Ireland. Water was expensive, having to be brought to the old town by a private company, and many tenements didn't have fireplaces. Depending on Knox's use for the corpse, Patterson, the guy who received the corpses on behalf of Dr. Knox, would then place it in a tub of water or alcohol when he got the corpse. So that sort of lays out what these circumstances are like. Now let's start killing people. So Burke and Hare, sorry. We got to. That's what we're here for. All you ghoulish mother effers. Burke and Hare differed on who was their first actual murder victim, and they called these guys shots. Each resurrectionist came up with his own code to speak about their illicit goods. For Burke and Hare, the term of art was shot. So they wouldn't say, oh, the body, they wouldn't say the corpse, they wouldn't say the victim, they would say the shot. Where's my shot? Yeah.
Oh.
Burke said it was Abigail Simpson, who sold salt and a whitening limestone and spent a night drinking with Hare before passing out and presenting an opportunity for creating a corpse to sell. Hare argued and said it was a miller named Joseph who was lodging with Hare and was bedridden with a fever. Joseph was killed with a pillow. This actually makes it more likely that Hare was right and Joseph was the first one to die before Simpson, because Simpson was killed by the burking method. So here's the argument. If they knew the burking method, they would have used it. So Joseph makes the most sense that they were like, how do we kill him? Let's use a pillow, because they didn't know how to burk yet. They figured that out with Abigail Simpson. His illness made their work more defensible, given that his fever would prove bad marketing for Hare's lodging business. Nobody wants to stay at a place with a feverish guy. So maybe he was going to die anyway, too. Like, who knows? He seems pretty sickly. Let's just put him out of his misery. Compressing the rib cage was only effective when the victim was infirm or badly drunk, since the resulting struggle would prevent the murderer from keeping the chest down. The method was ingenious because it left very little evidence of foul play on the body, as we're saying, unlike strangulation or bludgeoning. Burke and Hare probably stumbled on it accidentally, as we said at the beginning, in an effort to hold down the victim's arms and legs while they were being suffocated. So if I try to suffocate you even in your sleep or even when you're passed out, your body will, naturally struggle. The more drunk you are, the worse your struggle will be.
Sure.
Or the older you are, right? So this burking was just a matter of like keeping them from flailing, and it just so happened that while you were doing that, you were suppressing the rib cage, holding down the lungs, preventing air from coming back in.
Especially if it's a man versus a woman. I don't know how many women they had as victims, but that would be much easier, I would imagine.
Good old Abigail Simpson is the first one.
So it's interesting that they disagreed on what their first was.
Yes.
Like, how does that? They weren't together?
They were, but they had a different memory within the year. I think they had killed so many people.
Oh, I see.
So it's sort of all blurred together. Okay. Yeah.
Very busy.
Very busy. Yeah, this was all at the end of the year when they finally got, well, we'll get there, but.
Oh, this was just a year.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, they needed to remember within a year.
But they disagree. Burke's and Hare's most sensational murder was of the 18-year-old Mary Patterson, generally like romanticized as a very lovely, beautiful girl. Janet Brown, a prostitute 10 years older than Patterson and a close friend, bore witness to Patterson's demise and was the only witness to Burke's and Hare's operation. By my understanding, Patterson herself was not a prostitute, and she was no relation to the Patterson who was collecting bodies for Dr. Knox, by the way. She's just a pretty 18-year-old girl hanging out with her prostitute friend.
As you do.
Getting trashed in the night. Like you do, yeah. Patterson and Brown had been admitted to the police station overnight, likely because they were intoxicated. And this, by the way, in Edinburgh in the 1820s and 1830s, maybe even before, is just something you would do. You would go to the police station. When you got really, really drunk, you would just go down to the police station and be like, can I hang out for a while? And they'd be like, yeah, here we go.
I think I've seen that in movies.
Yeah, like the town drunk guy just walks in, yeah. I think the joke there is that like he's going to be arrested for public intoxication anyway.
Sure.
But here these girls are like, they're looking for a place to stay overnight where they're not going to get, hurt.
Right.
So
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. And the next morning they carried on to a spirits shop to keep the party going. So we get drunk, go to the cops, leave the cops, go out to the liquor store. Let's keep it. They're having a good weekend. At the liquor store, they met Burke, who gave them a glass of rum and bought them each a bottle of whiskey before inviting them to breakfast at Burke's brother's house. They drank the whiskey with tea, eggs, and haddock. That's the breakfast of champions right there. And then Patterson passed out on the table. Remember, she's 18 years old, and she's been drinking.
She's been drinking for 24 hours.
Yes, yeah. Through the night. So Burke and Brown went out for more food and drink, and when they returned, Helen McDougall, Burke's romantic partner, was there. Now, she wasn't too happy that her common-law husband was getting drunk with an 18-year-old girl and a prostitute.
Yeah.
So Brown decided it was time for them to leave. So Janet Brown, the prostitute, she says, we got to get out of here. but she would promise to return in 15 minutes. She goes by herself because remember her friend Patterson is passed out. She went to see Mrs. John Clark, who was alarmed at what she heard of Brown's adventure. She's like, "Hey, Mrs. Clark, my good buddy, let me tell you about how drunk we were last night and how I left Mary out over there on a table, passed out drunk." And Mrs. Clark is like, "Shit, that's bad news, buddy. You probably shouldn't have done that, leaving her alone with them thing. Go back. Here, take my maid with you." I love this, too, that Mrs. Clark is friends with Mary Patterson. Janet Brown, and she has a maid.
I literally was like, the classes are just meshing right now.
I mean, she's probably like lower middle class woman, but yeah, it's just delightful. She's one of my favorite people in this whole story. She's chilling with the prostitute.
Also, to be the maid, I would not be happy right now.
She's grumbling a lot on this walk.
But I'm sure having a relationship, like a friendly relationship with a prostitute during this time is going to be great for any sort of social gossip. Because she's just going to be bustling with information.
Oh, all the tea.
Mrs. Clark knew what she was up to. So off goes Janet Brown with Mrs. Clark's maid, because God knows Mrs. Clark is not going for this walk. But Patterson, poor Mary Patterson, was already gone with Burke, she's told. Janet is told. When Janet Brown comes back in the evening, she hears again that Patterson is out. In truth, though, Mary Patterson had been killed, and she had been moved within 4 hours of her death to Knox's dissecting laboratory. Patterson was carried through the streets in a tea box while boys ran after her, shouting, "They're carrying a corpse." That's how blatant this was. Yeah.
That's actually crazy.
But remember, like what I described, like the water and the no fireplaces, like just how derelict these facilities were, and these streets, and like the circumstances of these people.
I mean, like, what was anyone gonna do?
Right. Okay, they're carrying a corpse. People are dying all the time, right?
Yeah.
Still, Burke wasn't bothered by anybody, as these boys, except for the boys running along behind him, and they're not going to do anything about it. And so the body was successfully delivered, with the explanation that she had been purchased from an old woman at the back of the Canongate. Like you do.
We're good at making lies.
Purchased alive or dead? Purchased in this condition.
Yeah, right. They didn't answer that part. That was assumed. Knox preserved her in whiskey for 3 months before dissecting her, which is a little unusual, but not totally strange. The whiskey would have kept her in pretty good shape. And this sort of created like a lot of legends and like melodramas spun around Mary Patterson, because she's this pretty 18-year-old girl who's horrifically murdered, and all the rest of most of their victims are middle-aged or and different men and stuff. So we have Mary Patterson is heavily romanticized, and the fact that she was kept in the whiskey, her naked body, right, is kept in the whiskey for all this time, contributes to the lore of Mary Patterson. And the story springs up that one of Knox's students recognized the body, that he, like, isn't that the perfect romance, right? That the medical student had made love to her, only 4 months prior, and it probably never happened. Patterson, by all accounts, was not a prostitute. She just liked them, which, I'm with her there.
Yeah.
They seem like fine people to me. What are we? Sex, not swerfs here. What is it?
What?
Sex worker exclusive radical feminist. Did you know this term?
No.
Oh, you're welcome. You can take that one home with you.
I'm putting that in my pocket.
We are not swerfy here on Occult Confessions. So go, Mary, go. It was kind of you. But
you should have probably.
Mary herself, we don't know if she was a prostitute, but there's no account that she was.
Yeah.
But it just makes for a good story, right? That the medical student.
No, that's a movie.
Yeah, it's a perfect movie. Anyway. Rosner points out that Burke's and Hare's victims tended to be partially employed. So let's think about this. How did they pick their victims? And I don't know that they did. Maybe the larger question is, I'm sure they thought about it a bit, but this is like a 21-year-old guy who happens to have an apartment, right?
I don't know how much pre-planning and pre-thoughts going in there.
Right, yeah. And it gets kind of impulsive, right? So, but they're extremely lucky. They get away with murdering 15 people and selling 16 bodies in the course of a year. So how does this happen? Many of their victims tended to be partially employed. So let's think why this is the case. Fully employed agricultural laborers were often sober because they were fully employed. They had a hard job, and you couldn't be drunk and go work on the farm. The completely destitute had no money, so they had no money to drink with. The other funny thing about the completely destitute, like, wouldn't they be perfect, right? Oh, the totally poor, you imagine. Absolutely nobody's going to care. Except that they received regular private charity visits from clergymen or inspectors, social workers,
And
essentially.
that's the difference with today, because today, killing the homeless that's the go-to.
We don't have the social.
Because
We
no
don't have
one's
enough
checking on
social
them.
workers.
Oh, man.
Or
Oh,
door-to-door
sorry.
clergymen.
We don't have enough. How about
Just
that?
Mormons.
We don't have enough Mormons.
Well, I meant just door-to-door Mormons. I think we have enough of those.
We don't have too much of those stay-at-home Mormons. Mormons, get off your keisters. So, I can't believe that's where we went with this. But in any case, the clergyman or the inspector, if they went to go, check in on their guy, they would realize that they're missing and they would immediately report it. So this was a way of protecting the poor. However, if you were partially employed, what we would call a part-time or gig laborer today, you moved from town to town, and so you were less likely to be missed. You also had spare change because you had a job, so you could afford to drink sometimes. The period for partial employment among Irish immigrants was after the harvest and until the spring sowing season, the same time, by the way, as the academic season, which was the time when we were dissecting bodies. Like, this is just...
That's crazy.
Crazy good luck for these guys. The Irish aren't going to be missed. I mean this lovingly because these guys are away from home, which is Ireland, right? They're often like solo, one or two guys coming into Scotland to get work temporarily. They're going back home. So it's going to be too late by the time somebody in Ireland misses them. Yeah. And even then, they're not going to assume that this happened to them.
Sure.
Burke's and Hare's victims were sometimes anonymous. The killers confessed in detail, which is how we know the number, but neither the killers nor the authorities could name all of the victims.
Okay, so this is just what they say is how many?
16, yeah. Well, but Knox as well. Like, we have an account because we have one doctor who received every corpse.
Okay, so that's why.
So there's we can absolutely count them, but nobody knew what all their names were.
Sure, okay.
Their last victim, and the one that got Burke and Hare caught, was Margaret Docherty, a small Irish immigrant in her 40s. Docherty had come to Edinburgh on October the 30th looking for her son, who had been working there. The Irish economy was volatile and unable to sustain many of Ireland's working poor, and so many traveled to Scotland, as we're talking about, in the summer to assist with farm labor, making around £3 for their efforts. Remember what you could make selling corpses.
Oh, yeah.
10.
Yeah. They're making 3. Farmers paid for the Irish workers' travel to Scotland, but did not pay for their way home. So, the workers would often linger into the fall and wait for the Scottish authorities to catch up to them and deport them because deportation was free.
That's wild, but also go off.
Society, man. Edinburgh's street cleaners and lamplighters were nearly all Irish. In a grocery store, Docherty introduced herself and asked for charity, and a man there, by remarkable coincidence, told her that his name was also Docherty, and he would be delighted to invite her back to his flat to enjoy a little party for All Hallows Eve. Oh yes, it's All Hallows Eve, as if this isn't a spooky enough situation, because the man who said his name was Docherty, his name wasn't actually Docherty, it was...
one of those
Burke.
two.
It was William Burke.
Why did he need to say
Are
that?
you telling me that he's a liar?
On top of it all, Luke, he's a liar.
Oh
Like
my
an
gosh.
unnecessary lie.
I guess it helps. He's just trying to
like,
relate to her. Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
That seems right.
Your name is my name too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Burke, as it happens, was Irish, so he could convincingly claim that he was kin, and he spoke both Gaelic and English.
All right.
He'd served in the Donegal militia for 7 years. He met and married Margaret Coleman, and the couple had 2 children before the militia was decommissioned, and he left for Scotland to find work. He brought Mrs. Docherty back to a tenement in Old Town Edinburgh that he shared with his common-law wife, MacDougall. William and Margaret Hare, who lived in Tanner's Close, arrived to join the party. Margaret Hare, William's wife. Docherty sang while the two ladies danced, and then around 11 o'clock in the evening, a fight broke out between Burke and Hare. So in case you were thinking, they just always got along. Now, they'd been murdering corpses together for too long, and,
that's a lot in a year.
Yep. Someone cried murder, and then a voice shouted for the police. By 3 o'clock in the morning, Docherty was dead. She had likely laid down, having had too much to drink, and Burke and Hare had suffocated her, with Burke compressing her lungs and Hare holding her nose and mouth. Burke left to consult with Dr. Knox's assistant, David Patterson, who made arrangements with them to deliver the body. The porter, John McCullough, was hired to deliver the body. So they weren't going to carry him themselves this time. Burke and Hare received £2 7 shillings, with another £5 promised on Monday. So not too shabby. But unlike their previous 15 murders and sales, this time they would not get away with killing Mrs. Docherty. Burke's neighbor, Anne Gray, had discovered Docherty stripped naked with blood coming from her mouth, stuffed in the straw near Burke's bed. I guess she had been, hanging out in the apartment. When Officer John Fisher followed up on Gray's report, he found blood near the straw, but no body. And so, as a matter of course, he sent patrolmen to search the dissecting rooms. They would always do this when they couldn't find a corpse that, someone had claimed was there. The next morning, Mr. Patterson opened...
That seems like a very reasonable thing to do.
Yeah, it would be the first place I would look if I couldn't find my corpse. So Mr. Patterson opened the door for two policemen the next morning, and on hearing their question about a missing body, brought them the tea chest that Margaret Docherty was stored in. Gray identified the victim, and the Hares and Burke MacDougals were brought to the police station for questioning. And it fell apart real fast from there, because William Hare confessed everything.
I was about to say, they're going to turn on each other, or one of them's just going to give in. Is he the younger one?
Yes, he's the 21-year-old. He's more to live for, right? Burke is practically dead at 36.
I was about to say.
With a promise of immunity... Sorry, guys. With a promise of immunity, it was a different time. Hare turned state's evidence and gave a full confession. So he was promised immunity, which was kind of a dangerous move for the prosecutor because these guys were not going to come off very popular with the public.
You don't say.
Like the angry working poor, right? Who they were just murdered for a year. Burke and MacDougall were put on trial for the murder of Docherty, Mary Patterson, and James Wilson, the only murders that they had a chance of proving. They were defended by some of Scotland's brightest lawyers free of charge, and this was interesting. The way the Scottish legal system worked, one political party would be in charge of prosecuting, so the opposite political party, in order to make, the dominant political party look foolish, would be in charge of the defense. So politically, you wanted to win the case to make the prosecutor look inept so that you could steal the political seats from the rival party.
That seems very convoluted.
But kind of a good system for ensuring that you get a good defense. Yeah. Okay. This was, generally true in highly publicized trials, as Burke and Hare's, of course, would be because of the, sensational number of murders they committed. The Whigs defended Burke and MacDougall against the Tories. Burke's and MacDougall's trial lasted 24 continuous hours.
Oh my God.
This is how the Scottish legal system worked. James and Anne Gray testified to seeing Docherty's body concealed in straw. Burke had been cagey with the police, and the medical examiner could only suggest that it was probable that his victim had died by violence. MacDougall was found not proven, therefore. However, Burke was sentenced to death by hanging for the killing of Docherty. Thereafter, to be delivered to Dr. Monroe, his corpse, that is, to be publicly dissected. That was his sentence.
I mean, that's kind of beautiful.
It's
poetic.
Fitting. Yeah.
It's definitely a poetry to this. Yeah, what else are you going to do with him? So, having been freed, MacDougall, the common law wife, narrowly escaped. So I want to give you a picture now of how angry people are.
Oh, I didn't even think about this.
MacDougall's let off the hook because, they can prove They've got plenty of evidence that Burke is killing a bunch of people, but they don't have any evidence that she was actually involved in the killing of anybody. Maybe she just knew about it. She definitely was not a nice lady. And the public knows it. And so she narrowly escaped the vengeance of a riotous mob when the officer on duty put a ladder by the back window to make it look like she was leaving that way. Yeah. And then he snuck her out another exit. They were like, get her, she's coming down the ladder. Hare's wife similarly had to be spirited onto a steam packet for Belfast after a crowd or two called out to Burke Hare's wife.
Oh.
Yeah, they were not messing around. I mean, the 19th century, I'm a 19th century scholar, so maybe this is just my opinion, but like the Renaissance probably was a good time. The Renaissance was a good time for a riotous mob, and the 19th century was a good time for a riotous mob. There's a non-zero chance if you're born between the year 1800 and 1900 that some mob is going to drive you out of a town at some point. Particularly if your first name is Joseph. So, what were we talking about? The Mormons getting off their keisters. So, come on, guys. Joseph Smith, driven from town to town. The least we could be doing is going door to door, making sure
get on up
that the destitute are alive.
Check on the destitute, check on the pensioners.
Right. Make sure their bodies are not being sold to science.
We're really not checking on the pensioners enough.
Or sold to science, or that creepy show where they take the bodies apart. You know what I'm talking about? There was like exhibits.
Now I'm intrigued.
Yeah, you got to look this up. It's also scandalous. They used to have this like a museum kind of show where they would use actual bodies that they strip the skin off of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You could be donated to that museum. But it was also ethically kind of sketchy because there was like connections with China. And
yes, that they were perhaps purchasing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man, I forgot about that.
So it hasn't gone away.
Yeah.
Anyway, what were we talking about? Angry mobs. In jail, Burke was contrite and appealed to religion because, boy, he's done some wrong.
Where else are you going to turn at that point?
Yes, it's just you and Jesus at that moment. He made a full confession that more or less matched the one Hare had given. So that's again how we know. On a cold morning in late January, 20,000 people gathered to watch him be hung.
Yeah, man.
He was dead in about 10 minutes. Hanging is a pretty brutal way to die, and his body transferred to Alexander Monroe. At Burke's dissection, some students rioted, feeling they had a right to view Monroe's work, but the police calmed them by promising to let them enter in groups of 50.
Oh my God. Oh, okay. Wow.
Huge mobs of people.
So how large is the operating theater here?
I don't know, Luke, but I guess 50 gives us a sense of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if they can only have 50 at a time.
Yeah, it's like the size of probably a movie theater, like a decent, like a small, like a mid-sized movie theater. So when the public was invited to view the dissected corpse, they were actually very controlled. So they were rioting outside until the police were like, okay, we're going to let you in 50 at a time. Then they calm down and they come in to watch Burke's body be disassembled, and they moved through in an orderly fashion, like the crowd at a public funeral. Monroe retained some of Burke's leg hair and skin, which may or may not have been made into a purse, which was still in possession of some institution in Scotland right now.
Ooh.
And that was the end of the career of William Burke. Okay, but this actually is a follow-up episode to our Mysterious Disappearances series, because we don't actually know what happened to his partner, William Hare. As Burke stood on the scaffold, the crowd had taunted him, calling out, "Give him no rope, Burke him, and where is Hare?" Where was Hare? The public was deeply unhappy with Hare's immunity deal, and the prosecutor hoped to find something in Burke's confession to try Hare with. But Hare could not be prosecuted for the 3 murders that they had evidence for, and Burke, despite, I'm sure, trying really, really hard, couldn't come up with anything to help them prosecute his partner. I'm sure he was miffed, right, at Hare for just turning state's evidence right away. But they couldn't find anything. I mean, all of the bodies were dissected and disposed of, so that doesn't help.
I can't even think of like what they would.
Also, going back, like, it's significant that Knox was not allowed to dissect Burke's body, they gave it to Monroe because Knox and Monroe were these big rivals on the anatomy scene, and Knox had sinned greatly by purchasing all these
I
bodies
didn't think
from
about
Burke
that
and
at
Hare.
all. Yeah.
Yeah. So Hare could not be prosecuted, and so that was that. One of the victims attempted to bring Hare to court for murder on a private complaint, but the court determined that Hare's immunity extended to a private trial, and in any case, Hare had no money. This was what happened to O.J. Simpson, if you remember. O.J. Simpson was acquitted of murder, but then he was found guilty in a civil trial by the Goldmans. But this didn't happen for Hare. He was broke anyway. He's not O.J. Simpson, so having not had a football career, oh well. The court determined that he was still immune. The charges were dropped. Attempts to sue him ceased there, and he was given a cloak to disguise himself. And he was placed on a mail coach bound for Newington, where he sat himself on the outside, allowing him to remain wrapped up. So if he had sat inside the coach, it would have been weird that he's got himself all wrapped up.
Okay, yeah.
So it's cold. He sits up on top with the driver so he could keep all the bundles on. A lawyer, incidentally, from the civil case that they had attempted against Hare was riding inside the coach. Okay?
They have the weirdest look.
Right? This may have been a coincidence. It's also entirely possible that, the complainants were so annoyed that they had the lawyer follow him, or that he chose to do this on his own.
Yeah.
So there he is sitting inside the coach. Hare is on the outside, all wrapped up. Nobody knows that it's him until they stop the coach. And when they stop the coach, the lawyer tells everybody inside the coach, who this is. They refuse to let him back on the coach. And things just sort of descend from there. So Hare finds himself penned in by a mob at the King's Arms Inn. This is where they had stopped. Everyone now knows that this is Hare. And, like you do in the 19th century, people just materialize when they know that they...
Mob?
Yeah. Yeah. People are sprinting from 10 miles away to join the mob. So Hare considered walking out into the crowd, actually, to just let them do their will with him to get it over with. But there was a physician in there who talked him out of it. These freaking doctors. The landlord of the King's Arms wanted him out of his inn, though, because he didn't want the mob destroying his property.
Fair.
So, right? So here's what they did. They sent a carriage to the front of the inn to load Hare's trunk into, and they snuck Hare out the back by another carriage.
Be sneaking out the back.
Always sneaking out the back door.
Yeah.
So the next time you're in a 19th century mob, Luke, make sure you split to guard all your entrances.
Always.
Right?
I'm ready for it.
Bring a ladder, too.
Bring a ladder.
Bring a ladder.
Check the tea chest.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely check the tea chest. Any tea chest that's carried past you, you should be taking a peek inside to make sure you don't know that guy.
Or just yell dead body.
Just
be like those kids.
Odds are,
Yeah.
you'll be having the one tea chest that's full of tea. So he was transferred to a jail in Dumfries, which a mob then proceeded to attack every day. They smashed the windows. They smashed the lamps. They prevented anyone from coming to the jail. They prevented anyone from leaving from the jail. But even mobs run out of steam eventually, and at 1:00 in the morning, Hare was put on the road to Annan on the way back to England. He was last seen 2 miles outside Carlisle. His sister arrived a few weeks later to retrieve his bundle. Remember, he had been separated from his trunk. And that was the last anyone ever heard of William Hare. It seems Hare survived, but it is fairly remarkable, given how famous he was at this moment, that he could vanish so completely. Far enough from Edinburgh, early enough in the century, it's possible he was simply no longer recognized. He probably changed his name. He probably put himself into a kind of witness protection. But beyond that, that's all I can do is speculate as far as the fate of William Hare. That's my Anatomy Murders. Thoughts?
Here's hoping that he's floating in a vat of whiskey.
Well, he would have long since been dissected, Luke, if that were the case.
But I'd like to think that's how he went out.
Yeah, could be. Maybe he was dug up.
What job do you pick up after that?
I know anything really, because he would have changed his name.
Sure, it just feels not as exciting.
No, yeah.
It can't be as.
Maybe you appreciate that after that kind of life.
Maybe.
Maybe he turns
Maybe
over.
you
a new
become
leaf.
a grave digger to atone.
Ooh, I like that.
Interesting.
That's poetic. That's how we're writing this story with the girl and the whiskey vat and all that. Yeah, which, by the way, was of course a melodramatic story at the time, but. When we make this play, for sure, he goes and becomes a grave digger.
Or a doctor.
Yeah. When I was in Richmond, doing all those, I did a lot of ghost tours and a lot of history tours, and that was my bachelorette. And basically, we learned that most of the people, like the resurrectionists, at least in like Virginia area, were slaves. Is who they had doing it. So there's like one particular guy that you can like look up that became really, really well known. His name was like Anatomical Lewis or something.
Oh,
but he was a janitor at the it's a really cool building. It's like the Virginia Anatomical Theater or something. It's super cool if you ever get a chance to go.
Where they dissected the bodies.
Yeah, so it was like the same kind of thing. It was like a medical school situation, but they would have like a lot of slaves were known to go out, and they specifically used slaves, and the slaves would go to like African American specifically graveyards. So they weren't robbing like the white graveyards, they were robbing their own essentially.
That's
so it's super like it's very, very interesting. And he like the dude lived for a really long time and was really well known in the area and like really revered. Like people loved this guy. Like apparently he was a really good guy. So different. He wasn't murdering people, but super interesting, like the differences just because we have slavery.
Yeah, it's odd. I mean, especially, given like Knox's racial science, right? Like, any belief that the African American body was different than the white body, that's sort of strange that they would, like, oh, we'll dissect them, it's close enough.
And I mean, Lewis was kind of, I don't know if he was like cool with it, but I guess that's how he made a decent living doing it.
Did he have a choice, really?
Yeah.
I mean, these guys, of course, had the choice not to murder people.
Exactly. Very different.
They were not sympathetic. I mean, insofar as their victims were the working poor, and they were of the working poor. I mean, this was just a huge scandal. I mean, it was certainly hay for politics as well. Like, look at what's happening down here in, working class or working poor Edinburgh. Not even like working class, right? Just the working poor. We can't carry on like this, but Frankenstein to some extent is also of course a reflection of this scene.
Right.
Yeah. Luke, final thoughts?
No.
He's sick.
No, it's just so my wife being a paramedic, she's been to the cadaver lab numerous times in Baltimore, and she's told me about the various cadavers that she's seen there, and there's been times where it's just been half of a body, and it always leaves me wanting to know where the other half is and questions like that. And I don't know, maybe somewhere a great grandson of Hare is carrying on the tradition. That's the third ending for him.
I asked if they had kids. If that was known.
Well, Burke did have children before he left.
Oh, right, you did say that.
Yeah, he essentially abandoned his first family and set up a new life in Scotland.
They're probably.
So I don't think he had any children.
They're better off
Helen,
for it, honestly.
The Hares didn't.
That's what I was thinking.
We wouldn't know if the Hares had children. He was a relatively young man, and they both got out of Scotland, so it's possible that the Hares went on to have children. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting to think about today whether we've solved this problem. Have we solved this problem? We certainly are, as you're saying, Luke, dissecting people left and right. We still do this a great deal, and you can donate your body and your organs, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. Do we have enough of those? I guess we must. I'm not sure.
Enough organs? No, never.
I'm not sure. And where is the other half of that guy?
Where is the other half of that guy?
That's a strange question. What happened to that guy? In the urology lab or something?
Urology?
Yeah, I'd like to think his legs are just still going on without him.
Wow. That's beautiful.
I look forward to seeing that. All right, that's it. I hereby adjourn, declare close this meeting of the Secret Order of Alchemical Actors until such time as we get together and do it again. Olivia Literal, thank you
That's
for joining
my
us for
line.
so much. You want to do that?
No. Yeah, I'm here. I was here. I'm still alive. You can find me on social media if you want.
Give us that handle.
It's new, so if you used to follow me, the Instagram lords axed me last year.
the
So if
lords.
I disappear,
The lords and
Yes,
ladies.
the lords and ladies of Meta, they said no.
All right.
So it's live with 2 V's and then literal, Litteral.
Two V's, 2 T's.
I felt really personal. 2 V's in live and then 2 T's in literal, as is my last name.
There you go. Luke, do you want to sell anything?
You want to
right
plug
now?
anything?
No, you can find me on the Occult Confessions Discord.
Yes, that's a good thing to plug. Go ahead and check out that Discord. Go ahead and check out that Patreon. Always a good thing. Pays our bills. We got to pay for Riverside. We got to pay for our website. We do have bills to pay. So if you have a couple of bucks and you want to listen to some bonus content, that's a place to go. Here on Occult Confessions.
We've got to pay for our monthly corpse.
Our monthly corpse. Oh no. Goodbye.
That's true. That's true. I propped him up next to me right here. All right, close the damn thing.
Bye.